the Hanging On Podcast.
Y'all need Jesus!
Laughing our way through life, having a blast, and proving that three different people from three different walks of life can combine their faith and their friendship to make the world a better place. Hey, life's hard. Divorce, parenting, health issues, financial struggles, marriage. We're right beside you, walking through the suck life can sometimes throw at you. This is the Hanging On Podcast. And now your hosts, Nagme, Melody, and Anna.
Hi, everyone. We're doing another podcast today. I'm so excited to be here with my friends, Anna and Melody, and we have two very special guests, Libby and Agnes, and their story is going to just blow your mind and reveal the amazing faithfulness of God. Anna, you are the first one that got to meet with Agnes while you were in Iraq. Can you give us a little background before we jump into talking with Agnes and Libby?
Yeah, thanks, Nagame. I am so excited to be able to share today because for years, I had to keep it under wraps because of where we were and just for security issues. So for those on my email list, this beautiful lady you are looking at, Agnes, was the one I would always refer to as Angel.
We're so happy to meet you, Agnes.
Yes. And the upper corner, I feel it sounds like a heavyweight fighter. And in the upper corner, we have Libby. Beautiful Libby was serving with me in the Middle East. And so we shared a house together, and it was just the best experience ever. This woman is an amazing woman of God who just serves Jesus with all her heart, regardless of risk, except don't mess with her tortilla chips. That is a story for another time.
Big no.
But, okay, but real quick, when we were deciding who was going to stay and go due to high risk of missiles incoming.
In Iraq.
In Iraq.
We were both in Iraq.
We were both in Iraq. And so we had a group meeting. Who was going to stay and who was going to go. Because of not being able to get migraine medicine, my husband and I and daughter, we were going to leave. And I will never forget, we had a knife as a talking stick. Because why wouldn't you? And so if you wanted to talk, it would get passed around. And I will never forget this sharp knife of Libby going, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. This much I know. Those tortilla chips are staying right here. And so...
Priorities.
With the knife pointed at each of you.
With the knife pointed. So priorities when missiles are due to arrive at any minute, in retaliation for something, a political event,
Stay your ground and point and keep eating your tortilla chip.
Hanging on. The Hanging On Podcast. How to hang on to your tortilla chips. And so I'm like, and that is why Libby's one of my favorite people to work with because we have the same priorities. Nachos were very valuable in our house. And
they
so
are. For all of us.
For all of us. And so, but for today's purposes, this wonderful crew, Libby and Agnes, we got to meet in Iraq. And so the amazing part, am I talking too loud, ladies?
No, I just want to know, you said you and Libby lived in the same house. How did that come up? You guys were there with the same mission group? Were you how did this happen that you met Libby? Because then Agnes kind of steps in, but it was first you and Libby, right?
Libby, do you want to take that? Tell us about how you first met your favorite Iraqi mom.
I first met my favorite Iraqi mom a week after her sweet husband picked me up from the airport. So I joined the same team that they were on in Iraq. And because single women can't live alone, it's just more culturally appropriate
Yes.
to live, and for me to live with a family. So I lived with them, and the way so we lived together for, I guess, about 3 months, and during that time we met our next door neighbor, who happened to be Miss Agnes.
Yeah.
So is that with Back to Jerusalem? Were you guys all there?
No, we were through different organizations, but worked. How we ended up there was through different organizations, but we worked for the same organization in the same refugee camp. We worked with the victims of ISIS. And so we were actually there to work with the victims of ISIS, the girls who had been trafficked, and we were to teach English in the refugee camp. But how I met Agnes was
your migraine.
Yeah, it was my migraine headaches. For, you guys are just starting to get to know me, but I suffer from chronic migraines, just very debilitating. I'll be in bed like 3 days a week, just in pretty rough shape. And so with that being said, this one round of being in Iraq, I was going through a bad set of migraines, and I was actually getting very discouraged because I'm like, Lord, why do you even have me here? I'm sitting in a dark room, most of the time. I want to be in the camps teaching the kids because that's what I love doing. And so all I would have the strength for is making the team dinner, and that was about it. Was making sure they had meals. And so, but
Incredibly important, and I'm incredibly grateful.
Oh, food is important.
It is. And so that was pretty much my job, was just making sure, our house was fed. And so, but I had read this article online about these poor, beautiful African girls getting trafficked. And it's because I'm home by myself, so I'm just perusing the internet, and I had just read an article about girls getting trafficked to the Middle East, especially African girls, and how terrible they're treated. And so I read this article, and then during the day, while everyone's at work, I go to take the kitchen trash out, and across the street, I see this beautiful woman, Agnes. And so I just went across the street and introduced myself, and I wanted to make sure she was safe, and if she needed anything, to make sure she had my number. Agnes, welcome to the show. And how do you feel about sharing? Do you remember the day we met in Iraq?
You can be honest.
I can't remember the day actually, but I remember one hot afternoon.
What? You remember what?
We met in the afternoon. The sun was really scorching. Yeah.
We did.
So it was hot. It was afternoon, and then you see this weird American woman coming to you and giving you her number. And you're like, what?
It was a punishment for me on that day. I remember the wife of my boss sent me for chicken. So she wrote it on paper for me to take it to the market and get her the chicken. So I went to the market to get the chicken. So when I brought it home, she was like, that is not what I asked for. So I should take it back. So I was like, okay, could you please write it on the paper? And she was like, this is what I wrote on the paper. So go back there and get me the exactly chicken I wrote on the paper. She wrote it in Kurdish. I don't know Kurdish. I only know English. So I give it to the storekeeper to get me exactly chicken. She said it's the same, so I should return the chicken. I went there several times, more than 10 times. I come and then go, because she said she doesn't want that chicken. So that means I had to go to different shop, which is far from the house. So I went there and they gave me the same chicken. I came and she was like, this is not what I want. So I had to return the chicken and get the money and then so on my way coming, and I was like, okay, let me go to different shop if I could get maybe different chicken. Maybe this is not what she wants. So I went there and they gave me the same chicken. So on my way coming, and I met Mrs. Anna.
So you're working under these people who have ended up, you're being trafficked. You ended up in this trafficking situation, labor trafficking, and also a lot of, abuse and all of that probably in there. And they're sending you back and forth to get the same chicken in this hot weather. You remember it was super hot. And in the midst of this, the woman of the house keep sending you to get the chicken. That's when Anna came and said hi and gave you a phone number, right?
Yes, please.
And then what
So,
happened?
when she saw me and she was like, "What are you doing here, beautiful?" And I was like, "I live in this compound." And she was also like, "I live here." So she gave me a hug and a peck, and then we exchanged contact from there. So that is why I felt like, okay, I think I have a beautiful friend now that I can share my story with. So she gave me her contact, and then I went home. So when I went home, she was like, I don't like the chicken, but go and continue with what you're doing. That is the cleaning. So she kept the chicken in the fridge. And then I went inside to continue with what I was doing because the husband will come home for lunch. So I think 2 weeks later, and then we had a dinner. I went to their house, and there is where I share my story with them and how other girls are going through, and then yeah, we take it from there. So I think during the COVID time, um, the wife of my boss started showing certain attitude towards me. She was like, "Why do I smile always?" The husband liked me so much because of my hard work and my relationship towards the children. And he told me anyone who would love his children, he will also love the person back. Like the woman doesn't like African women. He said African women are ugly, so he wants Nepal or yeah, because all his brothers made are from Nepal. So he wants someone from Nepal, not Africa. And the husband went to the company to get him an African person, so he doesn't want African person.
So that we're all understanding you correctly. The husband was supposed to get someone from Nepal, not Africa.
And he went to an
Yeah,
agency, right? So
Yeah.
how did
yeah.
you end up in
Let,
that agency? Go ahead, Anna,
so
if you want to
yeah,
explain her
let
story.
me back
Okay.
up just a little bit. And then if I leave anything out, Agnes, please fill in. Or I'm sorry, what you want to share how you ended up in Iraq to begin with?
Okay. I'll start from Ghana.
Yes. What happened in Ghana that got you into Iraq?
Okay. Um, in the year I completed SHS in the year 2015. So in the year 2015, I started searching for a job. My mother is a single mother, so I'm the second elder. We lost my brother in the year 2016, and in Africa, they call it a culture, but I call it gender-based violence.
Oh, she's
Oh,
frozen.
so guys, Agnes is calling from Africa, and so sometimes the internet can just come and go. That can happen actually anywhere, but I was just
Even in other
another we did another podcast where our friends were having troubles as well
here in the United
here
States
in
of
the
America.
United States. So
Can you
it
give
can
the
happen.
background a
Yeah,
little
let me
bit?
give the
Since,
background of
yeah.
what we were told. And so, because she mentioned she came over for a dinner to our house, and so in that culture, saving face is very important. And so us once, making contact with her, well, it was helpful because Westerners making contact, they actually tell the people, don't let your girls make contact with Westerners. And that article that I read, I just want you to have some background of what Agnes was up against and the attitudes. In that news article, it talked about how African girls, if they're paid at all, get paid less than women from, say, Nepal or the Philippines. And in this article, it said that they do that. And I'm just quoting what the news article said.
Go ahead and say it. I'm from the Middle East. I know.
I know
what you're going to say.
I can't believe it said this. And they said it's because we're afraid their black face will scare our children. And so they really have this prejudice and
yes,
horrible.
that exists in the Middle East a lot.
And it's just heartbreaking. And so going back, so with Agnes and Ghana, what happens to so many of these girls is they're told they're going to get a job in Western country, like Germany, any Western country as a nanny or a waitress. And so they actually pay money to the trafficker, not knowing it's a trafficker. It seems like a responsible, nice person. They get on these airplanes and they have their passports taken from them. And next thing you know, they show up where they never intended to be.
And they
are now trapped because they don't have their passport. They don't speak the language. Agnes thankfully spoke English, but a lot of times the other girls, they don't speak English. And so they find themselves in these horrific positions and being trapped there. Sorry we lost you, Agnes. So when you do disappear, we just keep trucking a little bit. And so
Is the network went off?
What's that?
The network is not well. Is not well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
it's not
that's
stable.
okay.
So in the year 2019, and I met this agent at it's a friend who called me that there is a vacancy in abroad. Already, I have auntie at France, and she always tell us that if you have your money to buy your ticket and to get your visa to come to us, it's okay, but we can assist you get your visa and your ticket.
Your aunt in France told you that?
Yeah, yes, please. So
Can I give some context, though, real quick, Agnes, just because some people may not be aware? In other cultures, they will call people aunt who aren't biological aunts also.
Okay.
And so
good to know.
And
so someone close to her lived in France and told her, if you can get here, I'll help you, but I can't get you a ticket or a visa. One thing I know Agnes said that I just want to highlight, she comes from a single mom home, which is very dear to my heart. And she said she lost her brother also. So correct, in 2016, from what I understood you said.
Yeah, so in Africa, if you are an elderly person, so after my brother, I became the elderly person among my siblings. So I have to support my mother to take care of those children. That is how it works in Africa. So they will depend on you. And by then, I got employed at a gas station. In Africa, they call it fuel station. So I was paid minimum. That is like 400 cedis, approximately like $35 per month, or like $25 per month.
$25 per month?
Yeah, in a month.
For working in Iraq?
No, for working in
Ghana. Oh, you were getting $25 a month for working in Ghana. Okay.
Yeah. So
but that was not enough to support your family.
Yes. So when a friend approached me that, there's a company in France, they are hiring people. Like it's good for me because already I have the experience in working at the gas filling station, and when I go there, it will be opportunity for me to work at or to continue working at the gas filling station, and I'm gonna earn a lot so that I'll be able to help my siblings and my mother. So I was so excited. That is how everything started. So I started communicating with the person. So I asked him how can we go about it, and he was like, he will take care of everything. The company is there. When I go there, they will get me accommodation, my food, everything, and they will pay me monthly. So he called amount
Wow.
like 30,000 cedis, and that is a lot in Ghana. Like
Um,
30,000 is like $3,000.
Wow.
a
So
month.
I was a month.
So your salary was going to change from $25 to $3,000 a month.
Yes, please.
That's what they told you.
Oh,
Wow.
That's what he told me. And when you convert it to Ghana cedis, it's like 30,000 plus 30,000 cedis and some coins. So I agreed, and I was so excited because I want to help my siblings to school and stuff. So I was excited, and we started the process from there. So I had to go and get my passport, my medicals, and anything concerning traveling. I have to get my blood checks if I don't have any infection. I
Um,
went through those process, and it was pain by me. So later my money got exhausted. So I went in for loan because I know I can pay when I get there. I'll gain money and pay the money when I get there. So I went in for loan, and then we started the process. So we started on in March, April, May, June, and then my visa came. So I left Ghana on 8th June 2019. So when she told me my visa is in, I told him like my someone told me I have to go for interview, and she was like, "You paid money. I charge you for that, so you don't need to go for interview. We have paid. I mean, in Ghana they call it late bribe. I have bribed the people, so you don't have to pay for any. You don't have to go for interview." So we on the 8th March, that was the day I would leave Ghana. We went to the airport 12 midnight to wait for the flight. So
did you
when we
think
got
you
to
were
the
going to France? Did you think you were going
yes,
to France? Yes.
yes. So
Okay.
but I didn't have my visa. She was like, I will guide you because it's your first time traveling, so I will guide you for you to beat the immigration, then you will have a successful journey.
So,
And I was like, okay,
so it was a woman who guided you to the airport and set
yes,
you up.
please. Yes, please.
Very interesting. Because you trust, yeah. It's usually not the kind of people you think that would traffic. You would trust another woman to help you, guide you.
Yeah, mostly it's people close to us that will introduce such an opportunity to us. It's people close to you, so people that you trust. You think maybe this person I can trust in him or her. So whatever the
Someone in your
person says is
neighborhood,
true.
maybe.
Yes. It could
Uh,
be like
Isn't
school
it?
friend, co-worker,
uh,
anybody.
It's so interesting that it doesn't matter what country you're from, evil behaves the same way.
it's always the people that
Mm-hmm.
90% is people you know that
Will
traffic
deceive
you.
you.
That in the US, when you hear of trafficking, that is exactly the evil traffickers follow the same playbook, whether it's in the US or Africa or wherever it's at in the world. And so, Agnes, tell us, at what point did you find out you were not in France?
So when we got to the immigration man arrested me and it was like, look, do you know where you are going? I said, yes, I'm going to France. He said, no. I said yes because of what the lady told me. And he said no. So who is the agent? I called her on phone. She couldn't appear. So she was like, let me talk to the man. Then she spoke with the man, and then the man was like, okay. So later we waited for like 1 hour to 2 hours, and then they brought my visa. So when they brought my visa, the immigration man took the visa and went through and was like, no. Do you know where you are still going? I said, yes, France. Then he shake his head. He said no. So another lady also came. We were about three girls that we were traveling at the same time. So when they came, they were like, no, don't mind the immigration man. That is how they are. When you get there, they want money, so they will try to change your mind and things. And already in Ghana or Africa, before you travel, they will tell you don't tell anybody. If you tell your family or anybody around you, they will do the same. The riches will stop you from traveling.
So even though the immigration man was telling you that you're not going to France, you were confused because the lady
Yeah.
was saying, oh, immigration's just corrupt. They're trying to make money. Don't listen to them.
Yes. So 5 minutes late, 5 minutes left for the flight to depart, and then they gave us the visa. So when I get to Casablanca, that is where I realized that I'm going to the wrong direction. So I talked to someone who was like, no, when you get to the place, they will return you back to your country. They will bring you back to Ghana. You know, continue your journey because that isn't the agreement. And I was like, okay. So when we get to Qatar, I see like black people going to Qatar, and I was like, oh, I wish I'm the one going so that I'll have my journey back home safely. So when we get to Arbil International Airport, and they asked me to wait, so I was happy that they will return me or deport me back home because that isn't the agreement that I thought or the location that I thought I'm going. So I waited for like 20 minutes and someone came. So when the person came, he took my passport, my documents, and everything on me. And he asked me of my phone. I told him I don't have the phone because I hide my phone. So I told him I don't
You
have the
hid your
phone.
phone.
Yes, I
Mm.
hide it. So they searched me and they couldn't find my phone because I put it in my pants.
Your
So
pants.
yes, please.
Good job,
So
Agnes.
he took my passport and everything. I was like, no, it's my property. Why are you taking it? And the immigration people around said I should give it to him and follow him. So I followed him to the car and he was like, let's go, yalla. And I was like, where are we going? And because he too, he can't express himself in English, like he can't speak English properly. So he called someone on phone and it was a man. So the man was like, come, come, don't worry, come. I was like, come where? I want to go back to my country. I don't, here is not France. And they said,
This is
you
not
come.
France.
Yeah. And they
Mm.
said, you come. So I called the agent with the driver who came for my passport. I called the agent. I wrote the number on the small paper of sheet. So I asked him to call someone for me, and he called the agent. When I talked to her, like, this place doesn't look like France. She was like, you go. When you work for like 2 or 3 months, you continue from there to Turkey, from Turkey to France. And I was like, okay.
Mm.
So I agreed and went with the driver. On our way going, they exchanged me with a taxi. He stopped on the middle of in the road, and then he gave me a taxi to go with the taxi. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Because I've been hearing about this. They are killing people. They will transport them from one city to the other and kill them. So in fact, I was praying to God that, God, please, even if I have sinned, just forgive me. Don't let them take my life. So I was
Mm.
crying while going, and I just can't do anything. Honestly, I miss my mother at that point. I was like, what is my mom going to do? So when we get to the company, um, a man came out and was like, "Are you Agnes?" I said yes. He said, "Come." I went and he asked me, "What do I want?" And I was like, I want to take my shower because we spent 2 days, 2 days before getting to the place from Ghana to So when we get there, he was like, it was Thursday. I left Ghana on Wednesday and get there on Thursday. So Friday is holiday over there. And he left, the company manager left the apartment in the evening and gave us 4 sachets of water. And that is very small. So there was already girls there. So I met about 7 girls, including me, making 8. And he gave us 4 to use the water on the Friday and then the Saturday and give us two
Agnes,
small
Agnes.
pack of
Yeah, we need
Indomie.
to hold on. Agnes, just so people can understand, your voice is a little soft, so let me just reiterate a couple things. So Agnes arrives at the company, which is an apartment that they bring them to. So they arrive, they don't know where they're at. They arrive at this apartment, and in Iraq, you cannot just drink the water from the faucet there. You have to drink bottled water, or they have these little plastic cups that are like 5 ounces of water. And so how many of those, it's very common in Iraq
4.
for these little, so only 4 of these 5 ounces of water
For
And-
7 people.
for 7
For 8
people.
8
8
people,
people.
including me.
Well, 9 people. 8
Imagine
people.
that happening to you and only be given that much water.
And she was told that, yes, you're going to Middle East, but you're going to only work there a few months before we send you to France, which was her final destination. So she was tricked into thinking, even though she knew she was going a different direction, they told her, it's okay, you're going to only be in the Middle East for a few months, then we'll send you to France.
Yeah.
And
So at this time, you're in Iraq or you're still in a third country? You're in Iraq.
I was in Iraq, Iraq.
she was in
Okay.
yeah, she was in Iraq, and that is where the man came and picked her out. To like they pick what girl they want
As slaves, as
yes.
workers.
They're
Yeah.
basically slaves. And I even read in this news article how these girls, a lot of times, they're not fed, they're tied up, they're locked in bedrooms,
At times they're raped even.
I
Yeah.
was just because they're assaulted. Horrible things happen. They get beaten. And a lot of times they don't have their phones. They are 100% trapped. And so that is when I met Agnes, and
So this man picked her out, takes her home to be a servant/slave, and she becomes the neighbor in front of your house. And that's how you met.
Yes.
I just think it's so awesome that, Anna, you thought, which you were being sent to help these women coming out of ISIS, the trauma, but God had another plan. There was another plan that you weren't even aware of, that as you had a headache, you stayed home, you go to take out the trash, God's amazing timing that you had just read this article. You see her, and I'm just thinking, as Agnes was being trapped into this slavery, you were being sent to be her neighbor, you and Libby. And I just love how everything unfolded from there, because as Agnes said, 2 weeks later, you guys have dinner and she tells you your story.
she did. And so, which was so funny, I have all of my email updates that I had written from Iraq in this binder. And it was Agnes. I have on some of the rescues we did, I have updates and okay, she's made it to the car. On one of the girls.
Can you tell that story? Can you tell the rescue story? Because one, you had, and how Libby was involved, because there was the financial issue. You had no money. I was getting the email updates, so I was hearing about Angel, who's Agnes.
Yes.
Can you tell us that story after you met Agnes and how everything came together and with Libby involved? And I especially want to know about your dog Susie having an issue.
Yes. So there's 2 miracle stories, and it would be impossible for us to fit all of Agnes's story here on one podcast. So you guys are going to get the light version today of Agnes's story, and we look forward to more opportunities to share more stories. But today we really want to focus on the bigness of God and what God did through Agnes in the midst of being trapped in this horrific situation. So you've just got to hear a small little bit of it. And I mean small. The abuse she went through it's just heartbreaking. And so, but we would go, once I met her, I told her to ask the family if she would be able to go for walks with us. And they did allow it. Like I said, saving face is kind of a big deal.
They were trying to look good in front of the Americans. Yeah.
And so she was allowed to go for walks with us, me, Libby, and my husband, and sometimes daughter when she was in town.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when she told me how she ended up here, I was like, Agnes, let me help you get out of here and get back home. And I don't even know if you remember. I mean, you were in the midst of so much trauma. I don't know if you remember this, Agnes, but I know I'll never forget. You said, I believe God has sent me here for this purpose, like Moses, to help my people get set free.
Wow.
And so you were never concerned about your own freedom. You've always put other people's first. And so whenever I would try to send her help, or she would always be like, no, there's someone more important who's in a worse situation than me, who needs your help. And so as we mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, where Libby very rightly so defended her tortilla chips. That day, me and my husband and daughter, we flew out because if missiles hit the airport, I wouldn't have access to my migraine medication. And I admit, I shared with the group, I'm not an Amy Carmichael. I'm not a Hudson Taylor. I don't mind dying for Jesus, but I'm just not that cool to live without migraine medication. So I'm out of here.
So you guys came back to the States.
So we came back to the States. And so we had just arrived back in the U.S. And that's when I got a text from this beautiful girl filled with faith of a picture of a random sign in Iraq saying, Mama, you have to help this girl. She is in such bad shape. She's treated so badly. I told her to go wait by the sign and your people will go pick her up.
And help her. Wow.
And I said, no, don't tell her to go by the sign. Agnes, I don't have people. I just follow Jesus. Go back.
Your people, your organization.
Who are my people? But Agnes, always full of faith, said God's going to provide. And so how can you say no to that beautiful face? And not just, her faith is contagious. And so then I called Libby. And
Libby is back in Iraq.
Libby's still there guarding her tortilla chips. And
Or eating them.
And Libby, what was your thought when I called and said, hey, we need to get this girl by this rate. We need to find out where this sign is. And you shared with me the other day, and I had never heard this story. You shared with me yesterday.
So I also was there. I mean, we're working with a release and recovery organization with refugees. I was teaching English, just very normal kind of nonprofit work. Have no experience with human trafficking, with rescues, with anything. And Anna calls me like, Agnes has this girl. I think it was severe back pain. They wouldn't take her to a hospital. She couldn't walk, but they were like abusing her because she couldn't work. And she's like, we have to do something. Here's the sign. She said, like, can you figure out something? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll do that right between preparing for English classes. Like, I'll just come up with some extraction. So this city is 3 hours from the city where we lived. And she sent a picture, the lady there sent a picture of, I think it was a school. And so one of my giftings is like, God didn't really put a brain here, but he put a GPS. And so
that's more than I have.
That's
like,
true. I affirm that.
So you affirm that because my GPS sense is so bad. Anyways, go ahead.
I just started looking for schools in this town. I started narrowing it down. She sent a picture of the front gate and of like the street that she lived on. And so based off of like 5 pictures that she sent, I found the house.
Wow.
On Google. But like I didn't have a car. I couldn't just like go get this girl.
Because she's 3 hours away.
And let me remind you, we're in Iraq. You do not drive to places you don't know.
And also, being from the Middle East myself as a woman, it's really difficult to travel on your own.
Yeah. It is not wise.
So
nothing about this was wise in human standards.
No. Or like really thought out. This was like very quickly like, oh yeah, here's a picture. Oh, I found it on Google Maps. And then 2 other people that I was having dinner with, they were like, oh, we'll go. I'm like, cool. Great. Well, here's the pin. And so this girl was different from Agnes, where she had her passport and her residency card in her possession.
So she could actually
A lot
leave.
of the girls do not have that's taken from them so that they cannot run away.
That is a big deal.
Can I know? Can I come in? Like, she didn't have it. She know where the passport and the document is kept, but she can't have access to it. So we told her to keep eyes on it, so that on when the ticket is ready, she will just take it in the morning and at night. Then in the morning, she leaves the house. That is how it works.
She didn't have it, but she knew where it was.
She knew. I was rereading my email, and as I'm telling Agnes, going, there's no way. Like, this does not feel smart. And Agnes just never wavered. She goes, no, Mom, this is of God. She found where they're hiding her passport and her papers.
It's so risky. Wow.
It was because I was worried, what if we make this girl's situation worse? And
well, with trafficking, there's so many things that play a role, like the trafficker and the people that own her, or just there's so many different things that a lot of times you can't just go in and rescue someone. And this was your first rescue. You've never really done anything like this.
I'm a stay-at-home mom my whole life.
And Libby's
who finds herself in Iraq. Like, nothing about my life was making sense.
Well, and Libby's teaching English to refugees, like nothing with trafficking, right?
Yeah. And so when Agnes told me they found she found her documents, you know, we just need to trust God. So I'm like, okay, we'll keep trusting.
I love it.
And we just kept rolling. And that means another phone call to Libby. Oh no, this has to happen. And that's where we had another friend come in. So Libby, finish sharing what you're going to share, and then I'll share about the lost luggage part.
Okay, but let me continue from there.
Yes.
I remember when she left the house early morning, when Libby and other people went in for her.
I'm sorry, real quick. I'm so sorry, Agnes. I need to do this. If you know the other names of the women who helped that day, do not say them.
Yes, do not
for
say
security. It. Okay, I needed to interrupt to make sure we were on the same page on that.
Okay. So after Libby and the other people rescued her, she always wake up at 4 to take the kids to school. So they waited 6 and she's not yet at work. So they went to her room and they find out she's not there, and she's just 6 months in the in working with the family. She came to Iraq 6 months and she got rescued. So that means she has breached the law because she's supposed to complete 2 years contract. So they called the company that the lady is nowhere to be found. So they started calling the police to find her whereabouts. They started broadcasting on news everywhere. The company paid money to the people to search for her. So that is another story after she left the house in the morning. So they
Yeah.
find a
So
way if they
whole
could trace the people who came to rescue her from the house. But God
Oh.
did it, they couldn't.
it was very risky because in Iraq there are checkpoints everywhere. And so there was even who was willing to use their car because there's no way you're not going to get found out. And so you're asking people who have already given so much of their lives to work in that country, and then you're asking them to risk their work to save this girl
Wow.
because their car is going to be seen going through checkpoints with this African girl.
And this is criminal activity. The police is on it.
So this is what the task that we've been given is. I'm back in the U.S.
Well,
and trying
Libby's
to
been given. You kind of threw Libby into the the risk, right? You were
of
just
course.
kind of yeah.
But yeah, trying to make phone calls to people. I remember going, who's willing to let their car be used for even that day because it's going to come back to
Well,
them.
what is the likely penalty
and-
if they're caught, Anna, and not going? I think that's the part that maybe someone like me is missing. It's like, are you risking yourself
Yeah.
going to jail? What are you risking?
Libby, I would say at minimum, you will be kicked out of the country, never to return. So everything, all the work you've put in for what you did go to Iraq for, you would be
Usually-
kicked out of the country. You could be thrown in jail until you paid, they would come up with some astronomical amount that you owed them because all Americans are rich in their eyes. So yeah, that is probably. And so it's a big deal. Go ahead, Libby.
I also was told after, like, in working with other girls, like, if we don't share everything, it could be portrayed that we are the ones
Okay.
trafficking. And
Wow.
that's an even bigger penalty because, I mean, yeah, probably worst case scenario, you get kicked out of the country, you can't go back. But if you're caught and it's twisted that you're human trafficking, that you are moving girls, however they want to spin the story, then that I really don't know what the punishment for that is.
You could spend some jail
Yeah.
time, and you can be set up there pretty easy.
High stakes.
Yeah, there's a lot of corruption with putting you in jail and asking for a lot of money and all of that.
So let's get to the miraculous part, if that's all right, because
I want to know Libby's side because Libby
Okay.
Libby said 2 other people decided and they're going now 3 hours away to get this girl. And then there's an airport story with luggage. So I want to hear that I guess.
Yeah, so we did strategically book her flight to be early in the morning so that our friends could go pick her up, drive straight to the airport, which was 2 hours away. So basically she had like a 4-hour window that once the family woke up, they knew she wasn't there, something was wrong, they alerted the police. But we hoped that 4-hour window was enough for her to leave the country. And it was. So
Wow.
this is where I'll let Anna step in with the miracle story because there were 3 people who actually went. One was a visitor who lost her luggage and had to go back to the airport that morning to get it.
so this is the amazing part
The
because
visitor that you knew, can you explain that story? It's a
I'm-
little confusing.
I'll hopefully bring some clarity
Okay.
to that. So another friend of ours who agreed to do it, to go pick her up, which is just a miracle that she agreed. She said, "Yes, I'll do it." Let's see. Let's just call her Jane. Jane has agreed to participate in the plan.
Okay.
Jane, when Jane was back in her home country, she met a woman over the summer who, so back in the summer, said, "Hey, I want to come visit you in Iraq and see the work you do.
Okay.
She's like, okay, don't really know this woman, but sure, come visit. So 2 days before this went down, this woman that she didn't really know had just arrived in Iraq, and her luggage did not. And so, they go to where Jane lives. They had been calling, hadn't arrived. So, but she overhears Jane talking about this rescue plan, and she goes, "Can I go with you? I really have a heart for women who've been trafficked." And Jane's like, "Sure, if you know what you're getting into, driving 3 hours to a neighborhood we don't know. Sure, you can be in the car."
And then another couple hours to the airport.
Yeah, to the airport. Like, who wants to be in the car for that scenario? And so this is the amazing part, because I was really worried. I was like, hey, Agnes, our plan really sucks, because how is this girl ever going to find her flight? She had an escort into the country in the middle of the night. Their airports are not like our airports. There are so many checkpoints, and they don't let you drive because of car bombs. You don't drive up to the airport. You have to take a bus to there's one building and another building. It's very confusing if you're not familiar. And so you can only bring her to the first building. You can't even get her to the airport. I go, how is this girl ever going to make it to her flight? And once again, Agnes was like, we're going to trust God. And so I'm like, okay.
Love it.
Trust we shall. And so they get her to the airport as far as they can go. And I'm getting minute-to-minute updates at night on this operation. And I am freaking out because the girl sat down thinking she had arrived. And she is nowhere near the end point. And there's communication issues going on, because she didn't speak English well at all. And so then, anyways, Jane's friend was like, hey, while I'm here, I'll see if my luggage has arrived. And so she had left at this point to go ask about her luggage. And then she comes back and finds out it's not like our airports. To get her luggage, which had just arrived, she had to go through all the same checkpoints, get on all the same buses as this girl.
Wow.
So because of lost luggage, this girl had an escort got her to the point of basically right before the gate of where this woman saw another African family who was headed to Ghana.
Wow.
Right then and there. So we were able to hand her off to another family and get her on the plane.
Before the police got to her. Wow.
And it wouldn't have been possible except for lost luggage that God had prepared months in advance. Months in advance. And so, who does that? When is lost luggage considered a miracle and a blessing?
So true.
That's our Jesus. That is our Jesus. And so I will never forget Agnes sending me the message of her making it in Ghana. The sound of her voice saying, I'm in Ghana. I'm eating Ghana food.
Was that Agnes or her friend that got to Ghana first?
No, Agnes is still in Iraq.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
her friend had sent a video saying, I'm in Ghana.
I'm
and
in
Agnes,
Ghana. It sent it to me.
Wow.
So Agnes was, think of the Titanic, and Agnes is like, I am not getting off this ship until all my friends are saved.
Wow.
That's Agnes. That is that beautiful face, ladies and gentlemen, that you're staring at right now.
Because God is still using her to rescue other.
She is, and
How did
getting
Agnes
used.
end up in? How did you finally end up in Ghana, Agnes? How was your rescue?
Can can we just share one more miracle story? And then, because I don't know, that's the order of how it happened.
Okay.
Agnes was the last. And so up next were 3 other girls.
Wow.
Agnes sent another message because somehow she thinks, God
She thinks you're a human trafficking rescue.
This is what we do now.
Operation.
This is what we do now. And she's like, and I'm like, I think God only had one in him. But Agnes is like, no, he's just warming up.
And Libby's involved through all of these other ones.
Of course.
Wow.
So when we get to Agnes's freedom story, that's where Libby's going to come in. She is going to be the BA person that God used, depending on who you are. That's biblically awesome or
Biblically
just
awesome.
badass.
We're going to go with biblically awesome for the
She's
people.
biblically awesome,
Uh-huh.
but you're a badass. So it's just amazing how God did this.
Can you tell the other 3 rescues really quickly?
Yeah,
and then
real quick.
we can get to Agnes.
Yeah, so real quick, Agnes messaged me again, like, oh, this one's easy, Mom. They know where their documents are, and you need to know, this is when COVID is kicking off. COVID has just started kicking off. Flights are starting to get outrageously priced. We're broke because we just paid an outrageous, obscene price to get out of Iraq ourselves. So I told Agnes, I remember talking to her on the phone saying, Agnes, we have 0 money, like none. And so I can't help your 3 friends get home. But let's pray to Jesus and see what he does. And during this time, I was preparing to take my daughter to college the next day. And so I really did not have time to walk my dog that we had just adopted. But my dog hadn't pooped in 3 days. And friends don't let friends stay constipated. And so I had to find time to take her for a walk when I didn't have the time. So I take my dog to my favorite place to pray by the river. And I'm just watching the river flow. And I'm like, Jesus, you have to help these girls. Like, please provide the money for these 3 girls. And so after I'm done praying, I get up and I go to walk, and there's this couple sitting on the rocks, and they wanted to pet Susie. So I let them pet my dog, Susie, and we just start talking, and I start describing how I work with refugees, and, we're just sharing. And they go, oh, that's nice. And they go, we actually were just talking, going, we have a heart for girls who've been trafficked. And we really want to help girls who've been trafficked. And I go, that's funny. I literally just hung up the phone with a girl who's been trafficked in Iraq. We're trying to rescue 3 girls. And I go, but we just don't have the money for the airline tickets. And the man says, done. No problem.
No
and I am like,
way.
are you sure? Yeah, and he goes, no, we have a business that's done well this year. And I go, it could cost, he goes, I don't care what it costs.
Wow.
It's done. And I don't know, do you remember I called you, Agnes?
And you told me
Yes,
too.
please.
Wow.
Yep. I called her and I go, well, let me let you talk to the girl. You can deliver the news to this girl in Africa. How Jesus has just provided.
And in
so,
Iraq, because Agnes was in Iraq at that time.
Agnes was in Iraq, and so it was beautiful. She got to talk to this couple, and they, gave me the money to buy these 3 tickets. And so there's just God provision after God provision
So
story.
you're saying God uses constipation and lost luggage?
Yes. That's our Jesus. Thank you, Nagame, for digging those nuggets
Wow.
out of the story.
So if you're constipated and you lose something, don't freak out.
Don't freak
God is
out.
God
at
is
work.
probably up to something. Yes.
God is
Yeah,
at
there are
work. That
miracles.
is the moral of the story.
Wow.
And so
So
let
the
me
3
hand it-
girls are out, and
the
then
3
now
girls are out, and
Right.
now it's Agnes time.
with Libby and Agnes with Agnes Rescue.
Hit it, girls. You 2 handle that one.
Well, so the first 4 girls were all in 2020. And Agnes continued to, I think, if I remember correctly, you had a WhatsApp group with all of these girls, and she checked in on everyone and kept us updated. And so, but she signed a 2-year contract, and she felt like Anna said earlier, that God had called her, had allowed this to happen to her for a purpose. And so she was going to work out her 2-year contract, which puts us in June 2021. And she texted me and she said, my 2 years is up. I'm ready to go home. And I was like, great, this is going to be easy because you worked your 2-year contract. You signed a contract, 2 years, and we go home now. And then we started trying to figure out how to get her home, because I don't know if you've ever like sat and talked to someone who was just evil, but I've done that 3 times, and all 3 of them were owners of these companies, these cleaning companies that traffic these women. I talked to 3 different owners, and every time it was just like looking evil in the eye.
They didn't want to let her go, huh?
No, so they made up this story that she left the first house with permission, left and changed. When she changed houses, the second house, the grandmother got sick with COVID, died. They didn't want her around anymore because they blamed Agnes for killing the mother-in-law, for giving her COVID, that there was never any problems, and then she died. And so they kicked her out, and she had to go to a 3rd family. Well, in that switch, the company made up this extra contract that basically said, this does not fulfill your 2 years. Your contract starts new because you had to change place. And so I went to the office. I saw the contract. They don't let the girls, they call these Ghana girl contracts, and they don't let these women sign. They have a fingerprint. But if you really look at it, it's just a scan. Like, it's not their actual fingerprints, because then they can forge whatever. There's not even a fingerprint. They have her name typed, just printed on the contract.
Wow.
She has never seen it. She never signed it. And that's what they're holding on to as a legally binding contract. So we're talking to the owner of this company. He's presenting us with a fake contract. And I mean, we have no knowledge of what the law says about what these women have as rights, because there are rights. They're completely overlooked, but there is law that these guys are supposed to abide by. And so basically they will not give her passport over, and they say that that's the family's decision, that the family has her passport. And Agnes, did you have your residency card, or did the family have both your passport and the residency?
The company sees it later on. Do you remember we went to the company and they signed a new contract that is not in my signature? And you were like, why is the date? What shows he has signed a new contract? And they couldn't explain. So he took the card and the document from the family that I want to go back to Ghana. So the company took the card until the people that assisted came in before they gave the document to them.
So what happened?
So they started sending us on like a wild goose chase. They were like, you can go and get the passport and the residency card from the family. So we left, and they called the family and said, bring it to the company because this lady wants to leave. And so when we got back to the family, they were gone, and later that night she asked for it, and they were like, we don't have it. We took it to the company. And we were like, okay, so this is the game we're playing. So at this point, so the first four women knew where their documents were. It was a bit easier. This was the first time that we were like, okay, this is difficult, and we have absolutely no idea how to go from teaching English to now extracting victims of human trafficking. Like we actually don't know.
And you thought this one would be easy because she'd finished her 2-year contract.
Right.
So now what do you do?
Contract.
Yeah.
And at this point, there was only one person I knew who worked in government, and it's like in the tourism agency. But I was like, can you just help me understand from a like legal perspective how we can go about this? And so he sent someone to the office to pick up the passport, but the guy wouldn't budge. I was thinking if a local man went, that would be a little less, shameful than a woman walking in there demanding a passport because it's the Middle East but we just were hitting dead end after dead end. And that's when I can't remember who, but there's an NGO in the U.S. who was able to contact another NGO in Iraq who helped with her legal fees to actually get her out.
Basically get a lawyer to fight for her and get her out.
Anna, do you remember, I don't know how much we can share about that, but
I believed it was our friend in anti-trafficking, Nagame.
Yeah. From what I remember, Anne stepped in and kind of contacted some people that she and the NGO, maybe some government people that were able to get her documents back. An anti-trafficking organization in the U.S. contacted an anti-trafficking organization in Jordan, who then contacted someone local in Iraq, who was able to, and I think that was the only time that we have like paid ransom in a way of like, if you want to be free, you have to pay for it, is what's in these girls' contracts. For the 2-year contract that they had renewed.
If you want to breach your contract, you basically have to pay your way out of it.
So that's what you did.
And so this organization did that.
Wow. And so Agnes was free in Ghana.
But Libby sent me a picture, during this time, of where I actually got to see where these girls would be kept. And they literally have a chain and a padlock on the gate. And it's so evil. And
so the apartments where these cleaning companies, the offices are, like when Agnes arrived and she had, the 4 5-ounce bottles of water for 2 days for 8 people in 120-degree water, in 120-degree weather in, the Middle East in July. They're left there until a family comes and buys them. And when the employees go home at night, they, maybe not all of them, maybe not at Agnes's, but at others I definitely saw, they padlock the gate. So you cannot get out. If there's a fire, if there's an emergency, if you need the hospital, you can't get out. You can't, no one can bring anything in, and you can't get out.
Wow.
In the hours that the employees are not there.
It's just heartbreaking. But so many times Libby would have to go toe-to-toe with these company managers or whatever, we would talk, and I would just be so impressed by the courage that God gave Libby to fight this fight. And we've all mentioned, this isn't something we do. We're not trained.
It reminds me of when Jesus saw the 5,000 that were hungry, and he tells the disciples, you feed them. The disciples actually first say, let them go away, let them go get their own food. Our initial reaction is, let someone else deal with that. And Jesus turned to the disciples and said, you feed them. And they're like, what? We have got nothing. How's a couple of fish and some bread gonna help this multitude? And a lot of times God brings a very huge issue to our attention that we're we don't have the resources. Let someone else deal with them. Let them go get their own food. And God's like, no, I want you to care for these people. I put you here for a purpose. And as you step into obedience, doors open up through a dog's constipation and through lost luggage and through circumstances. And you're like, I was never really wanting to be in this rescuing trafficked girls, but God, that was part of God's plan, and he had ordained it from months and months ago.
Ordained it years in advance, because how we all met, Nagame, Melody, and Anne, we met through a life hardship so many years in advance.
And got to be part of this rescue story by connecting all the NGOs.
Yeah. And it was Anne's connections that made that possible.
Wow.
It's God, and that's where I hope our audience can, try to keep this in your mind when you're going through something. You really have no idea of the Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, to prosper. And that was written in the Bible at a time where things were not looking great for Jeremiah. He was imprisoned during that time. And so we just don't know the plans of the Lord, so go ahead.
And God used Anne, our friend Anne, who's not here, to also bringing it all back. Now, Agnes is in Ghana continue to help rescue girls from trafficking. And God used Anne's connection again to connect her with our mutual friend, Sarah, which we will interview later, and created a team for helping with trafficked girls in Africa, but also we will talk in our later interview about helping anti-trafficking efforts in general. So then the connection with Sarah and her husband comes in through our connection with Anne, which happened, like you said, God had ordained it years ago, because it was through that connection that a lot of things unfolded, including really, as Agnes said herself, being used as a Moses to help her people be set free from slavery.
That's so powerful, Agnes.
Yeah.
God has a calling on your life, and you were just trying to support your mom and your family, and now you're supporting many women. I'm really, really in awe.
And I would really love if our audience could, also support Agnes when, this video gets posted. We'll have in the description a link to where Agnes now has her own organization, and she works every day trying to educate women, just like Sarah will be interviewing what she does and how prevention is the key.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit what life's like for you today, Agnes, and what you do with your organization.
And I want to also know, how does your faith in Jesus play into all of this?
Okay. Thank you for this.
If you can be louder, come closer and speak louder too.
Pretend like you're yelling at us, Agnes.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. From my childhood or growing up, I always don't want people to go in a situation where maybe I am coming from. I try to help or stop people from going where I am coming from or where I have been to before. So I guide people. If you listen to me, fine. But if you wish, you'd also try to give it a try. It's also your luck. So right from my childhood, I play with people, sometimes people who are less privileged than us. I'll bring them home and cook for them to eat. My mom will be complaining like, we don't have food. We are still spending the food outside. I was like, they also need help like us. God will provide for us every day. Because I remember in Matthew 6, 7 or 7, 6, he says we should ask and it shall be given to us. So I'll ask God every day so that he will give us more. So I believe in our daily life, so far as we wake up every morning, God is going to take care of us. So that's how I started up every day. My mother wasn't a Christian. She doesn't go to church. She doesn't believe in God. She doesn't believe in anything. So me coming from such family was kind of a challenging. But in everything, I would say God, and she would say, where is God? I would say, God is there. So one day I was able to convince my mother to church, and by then she was having the child after me was a little baby. So she took the food to the church premises, and someone came to end the food while we were praying in the church premises. So my junior sister was crying, and then she was like, okay, let me go get her the food. When she went to the place, the food is not there. Two boys have taken the food and they ate it. So she started shouting at them. I was like, look, they also need food. So bless the child and give the food to them. So I was like, okay, God used every situation to bless people. What if they didn't get that food? They could have died, or maybe they could have developed stomach ulcer because of anger. So that food was able to serve them. So I started from there. And then I was like, okay, but I don't have the strength. Sometimes people will share their story, and looking at the story, they need financial support. But I also don't have enough to support them. So I'll be like, let's pray to God. God will make a way. So lucky for me, when I met Mrs. Anna and Libby also had been a wonderful friend to me, because she helped the girls after rescue to secure a trading, whatever they would want to do, they support them financially. So it became something like, okay, this means Christianity is not only about yourself, it's about everybody in general, loving your neighbor. So I learned that from Mrs. Anna, Sarah, and Libby. So that's how I came up with like helping other people. Like, it encouraged me. They'll be like, I'm proud of you, keep doing what you're doing. So that encourages me more to do what I'm doing right now. So when I came to Ghana, I talked to the girls that this is my vision. Let's team up together and help other people. They were like, they have family to support. Why they have family problems? Why should they leave their family to go and think about someone? So I prayed to God, and God was like, no, I need you to do this. Help people. When you help them, I will help you.
Yeah,
So
coming from... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So that is how I was like, okay. I remember when I came, Mrs. Anna and Anne, and I think Sarah called me if I could continue sharing my story as advocacy to create awareness. And I was like, yes, I will do it. So when I said doing that, I was like, oh, sometimes you'll go to places and people will be like, are you sure this is really trafficking? I will say, yes. So I'll go and tell them to go and read about Act 101. So when they search on Google, they'll be like, oh, so this is really trafficking. Before, they don't believe it's trafficking. They believe maybe it's just a normal thing or culture. But later they realize, like, it's trafficking. So,
you're trapped.
Yeah, I later added gender-based violence, because most of our culture here in Ghana doesn't really help at all. Sometimes they are trying to humiliate people, to manipulate people, in the name of helping. So I engaged them in all this, and they realized, oh, this is not right. I was like, yes, it's not right. So when I educate them, they get to know more. That's why I had the opportunity to attend conferences, and then they asked me to get myself a new brand foundation or non-profit organization so that I'll be able to do more.
Wow. I do
So
want to
I
say,
think last-
yeah. Go
So
ahead.
this month 15th, and I had my operation lances for the Freedom Mission International.
What is it called?
Freedom Mission International.
Freedom Mission International. I do want to say, coming
Yeah.
from Middle East and countries that you're on survival mode, what Agnes is doing is so amazing because you really don't think about helping anyone else. You're kind of surviving. You're trying to save yourself. This idea of reaching out and getting someone else's hand, like it's so foreign in so many countries that are surviving. And so for her to educate, hey, keep your eyes open, help someone else. Let's help each other not to fall into this trafficking, and also having a heart that wants to help someone else up, not just focusing on our own life. And your faith saying, you know, as you give, God gives you more to give, is really such a blessing.
So when I came to Foundation United, it's American organization. They have been supporting girls. If I call for help every month, they do send money to help pay people fees. It has helped me to get people into vocational skills training and pay fees for like Gifty. I remember when I was in Iraq, Mrs. Anna sent money to a lady called Gifty to pay for her fees.
Can I say one thing before you?
Yeah,
before
of
you end it?
course.
Just to brag on her a little bit more. The day that she left, she was brought by an organization to Erbil, the capital where the airport is. And I went and picked her up, and we had about 5 hours before we had to go to the airport. And she was like, I just want to help one more girl. And so we went and got this girl. We took her into town. We got her food. We took her back home. We repacked, took her to the airport. She went home. And since then, this amazing woman of God has not stopped sending me people. Libby, this girl needs help.
wow.
This girl needs help. And since she has been home, and I'm now back in America, but in the time that I was there, she sent me 5 more girls, a lot more, but sent 5 more that we were able to rescue.
Oh,
All because she will not give up on setting her.
Wow.
And since she's back, when I would take them to these girls to the airport, put them on a plane, and they arrived in Ghana, and she would pick them up, take them to her apartment, cook for them, take them to the hospital if they needed an exam, take them to police to file a report. And she just made everything happen, got them a bus ticket back home, because most of them are from rural villages. They're uneducated. So they have no idea. I mean, that's how they get sucked into this anyway, because they're just lied to, and they believe it. But she is giving up.
That's so amazing. And I'm just amazed of how all of our roles, like just the one sheep that God rescues and uses that to rescue others. But my friendship with Anna, and then our friendship with Anne, and then with Melody was there, and then you coming to Iraq, Libby coming, this friend of Jane showing up with lost luggage, just the details. If any way in our life we're so confused, we can know that in the little details, or even in the obstacles, God is working. And sometimes it's years of putting puzzle pieces together before it comes to fruition. That just has blessed me so much today.
And I could see our
hear that.
audience taking a really strong message from this, because we're all different. We have different callings, different purposes. We're in different places in our lives, but we can all agree that even when circumstances feel hopeless, dark, confusing, we know for sure we serve a good God. And as we walk in obedience, He's knitting a beautiful story together.
This has been the Hanging On Podcast. Make sure to like, rate, and comment. It'll really help. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and all other podcast platforms. And we'll see you next time on the Hanging On Podcast.